gonna go to the big news, which is Donald, Mr. Donald. Mr. Donald Trump. How are we? How is everything happening? True crime. Alright, let's go to Donald Trump. There's no time like today. Oh, there you go. US to send Patriot air defense system to Ukraine as furious Trump blasts two-faced Putin. Oh my gosh, I want to hear it. US President Donald Trump said on Sunday he will send Patriot air defense missiles, 10 out of 30, to Ukraine, saying that they are necessary to defend the country because Russian President Vladimir Putin talks nice. Yeah, we've already talked about that. So, Google. Trump approves sending weapons to Ukraine. Right? So TLDR is that Donald Trump has agreed to send weapons. There was talk of a huge announcement on Monday about Ukraine. Okay? And we've all been waiting for the news with bated breath. We've all been waiting for those news. And it is, okay? Yes, it is. And we've received that update. We have received those news. There are actually two news, okay? There are actually two big announcements that were made, in a way, as part of a single announcement. People talked a big game, and I'm not sure. I'm going to start with the good news, and then I'm going to follow it up by the BS news, because we cannot have good things. We don't deserve good things. Here you go. So yes, it is about Russia giving, the US giving Russia 50 days, which in itself is comical. Both were comical. All right, let's go. That's the good news. Oh, Fido, what are you doing here? Jesus Christ, get off my lawn. Fido just inserted himself into the stream all of a sudden. Okay, so first we're gonna start with the good news, with the actual positive news. US to sell US 10 billion worth of weapons to NATO for onward delivery to Ukraine. And mind you, by good news, I mean not horrible news, because we have had enough horrible news. Some will say, oh, the US is selling weapons. That's not really helpful. That's not really any better, especially since it's just 10 billion, which is much less than the aid that has been given to Ukraine under Biden. I guess those are the criticism that is criticism that can be levied. But counter argument, something's actually is happening, and the shipment of weapons from the United States is flowing again, or will flow again. We'll see. The United States plans to sell NATO countries about 10 billion worth of weapons that will subsequently be sent to Ukraine, including long-range missiles. I have no clue what the details of this are. I don't think anybody really knows what the details of this are. What is the time frame? Which countries will be buying? What quantities? Which weapons will be available for sale? And of course, what is the time frame of those weapons being delivered to Ukraine? That is another matter altogether. So yeah, basically, this is the good news. So just wait till I get to the bad news. There's gonna be something. And no, I don't really follow Asmongold. The United States plans to sell NATO countries about 10 billion of weapons. We already seen. US President Donald Trump confirmed on Monday that a deal has been reached with NATO to sell weapons to Ukraine. Trump said the US will sell billions of dollars worth of the best military equipment, which is, again, this is vague. This tells us nothing. This doesn't tell us which equipment, what quantity, and when will it be shipped to Ukraine. An informed source told Axios the US will sell about, and of course this is supposed to be stage one, because it seems like Trump has flipped again and has been disillusioned with Trump a little bit, especially since apparently there's this anecdote of Trump going to his wife Melania and saying, I just had one of the newest conversation with Vladimir Putin, and it was a wonderful conversation. We really had a good conversation. And Trump's wife responding with, oh, really? Another city was just hit in Ukraine. And Trump just having a light bulb moment that he is having tons of wonderful conversations, but the effect of those conversations is nothing productive. The only effect of those conversations is that Russia is escalating its attacks on Ukraine. There you go. An informed source told Axios 10 billion worth of weapons to NATO allies in the first wave. So there's so many questions that this raises, right? Like, what is the first wave? How long will the first wave be? How do the waves even work? What will be the weapons available for purchase? We've already the timetable. So there's just so many questions that I have about this whole situation. Axios reports that these weapons include air defense systems, so Patriots, artillery shells, and long-range missiles that could strike deep inside Russia. We'll see. We'll see if anything of value or positive will come out of this. I'm very Polish, so I'm very cynical about this. I'm very negative about this, I guess. But I've talked to people that are more positive, and they've told me that this is just better than nothing. Okay, at least some form of support from the US is being resumed. It seems like this indicates a shift in policy on the part of the US. There was another thing that was supposed to be happening, but I don't see it being announced. I haven't seen any news on it. The second big thing is that apparently Trump has been, or rather, not Trump, but Congress people have been floating around an idea of seizing the frozen assets of Russia and the US and just handing them to Ukraine, which that amount is $5 billion, which would mean that suddenly we would have a business deal for $10 billion. So $10 billion worth of weapons bought by NATO and given to Ukraine, in addition to $5 billion of frozen assets. But I'm not sure how the frozen assets story is developing. Let us see. Let us see if there are any news on frozen assets. That's the second part of the puzzle. Or at least that was supposed to be part of today's announcement. Oh yeah, and everybody's saying that Putin has made a grave mistake, especially Fox News, that will allow itself to be a little bit more pro-Ukraine now. Putin has made a grave mistake. He has played Trump, and you will see that Trump cannot be played. Trump is unplayable. Well, we'll see. We'll see what will happen. Okay, let's not. Trump must not tackle his way out of helping Ukraine. Already I can see skeptical voices. Because right now Europe is giving Ukraine the interest rate that the frozen assets in Europe are generating. Most of the frozen Russian assets are in Europe, but Europe is really unwilling to touch the frozen assets directly and give them to Ukraine. The most that Europe is willing to do is to take the interest rates that it generates and hand that over to Ukraine. But the idea of the US just taking $5 billion of its Russian seized assets and giving it to Ukraine has been certainly flown around. We're going to find the right outlet for this. There you go. US Senator announces the preparation of most extensive sanctions. Oh yeah, there are also sanctions. But we'll see. We'll talk about the sanctions in a moment. But for now, let's try to find something on the Russian assets. The major statement is in a lot of ways a major disappointment, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're talking about this now. We're talking about the frozen assets. There you go. US Senate proposes using Russian assets to help. Oh, this is interesting, actually. This is actually interesting. I did not know that the Senate proposes to use the frozen assets in this particular way. And since kidnapped children are that is my particular forte in Ukraine, that is actually something that I'm building expertise on. I guess let's look into this. Like I'm not sure how this money could be used directly for helping abducted Ukrainian children. Because from what I've heard from organizations helping to retrieve Ukrainian children, it's not always actually about money, but more about the logistics of conducting rescue operations. And those are not always a matter of money. So I'm very curious as to how exactly this topic will be discussed of using the frozen assets. The only thing that I've heard is that there was a plan to use the frozen assets to help Ukraine. I had no idea that the exact plan was to rescue children with it, the kidnapped children. I assume we're talking about the 20,000 ballpark kidnapped children that are unaccompanied, because under coercion, a lot more children who are accompanied together with families have been moved to Russia from occupied territory, but nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about those de facto deportations of people. US senators have introduced a bill to confiscate Russia's frozen assets. So that is what I knew. That is all basically that I knew, that the US senators have been floating around this idea of seizing 5 billion in frozen assets. The funds can be potentially directed towards helping Ukrainian children who were abducted by Russia, according to the Deputy Speaker of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, Olena Kondratyuk. Oh, okay. So Ukraine has basically proposed what could be done with that money should the US decide to use it. But I really wonder about the logistics, just how those funds would be allocated for the purpose of rescuing children. And I'm hoping that maybe the article will shed some light on it. Maybe that is something that I should be. God, I haven't even thought about it that way. According to her, the bill was drafted by Senators Amy Klobuchar, Democrat, and Chuck Grassley, Republican. The legislation proposes to, there we go, assist Ukraine in investigating the abduction of children, identifying them, collecting information, including open source intelligence, and holding those responsible accountable. Holding those responsible accountable is a completely different and very difficult task, mind you. The ICC has issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin and Maria Belova. I don't remember her surname. She's like the children's advocate in the government, which is ironic considering that she helps kidnap children and Russify them. But there you go. That is Russia for you, full of paradoxes. Provide abducted Ukrainian children with medical and psychological rehabilitation, family support, reintegration services, legal aid, housing, and educational resources. Okay, that definitely will take money. This is the part that definitely I can see needing additional funding. So this is the part where I definitely understand why, how the frozen Russian assets could prove to be extremely useful. Especially since I've seen organizations like Save Ukraine provide those things. I've seen them provide psychological help. I've spoken with psychologists from Save Ukraine. And bear in mind that when children are rescued, this especially is true about people from occupied territories that are brought to Ukraine. They often don't have anywhere to live, and then organizations such as Save Ukraine come in and give those people temporary housing. I am planning to film that temporary housing quite soon. I have to reestablish contact. Align sanctions lists with those of the United Kingdom and European Union to more effectively bring to justice individuals involved in the abduction of Ukrainian children. Okay. Authorize the US President to use any Russian sovereign assets located in the United States for the purpose outlined in this law. So, yes, there we go. I think CBS News previously reported, citing its own sources, that US President Donald Trump may confiscate around 5 billion frozen Russian assets. So that would be very good use for these assets, in my opinion. The topic of kidnapped children has been very, very underreported. I think that the world is not paying enough attention to the fate of children in Ukraine during this war. Like, okay, the world is not paying enough attention to Ukraine in general, but I think that among the topics that people are not paying attention enough to is the topic of how this war is affecting children, especially since it's not as flashy. There's no shooting involved, there's no cool weapons involved. So people basically just see the horror of children being mistreated, kidnapped, and sort of tune out. They don't want to hear it, they don't want to confront it. It's just too much. It's just too much for people to bear. But it is still very important to talk about nonetheless, in my opinion. Even if it's not exactly comfortable for everybody. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Let's see. Although I don't see the frozen assets thing is nothing assured. We'll have to go past Congress. I'm not sure if there's going to be a presidential veto on that one. There would be a very brutal and bad presidential veto to veto money that would be used to rescue kidnapped children. There would be a pretty horrible development. Then again, the United States government has been shown to be pretty indifferent to the fate of children in general. So I'm not sure if I should hold my hopes up. US President Donald Trump's considering new funding for Ukraine. This would be the first such move since he took office in January, according to CBS News. So yeah, again, there's the 10 billion weapons deal, which is good. That is direct military support. But keep in mind that Ukraine needs more than just military support. It needs aid in different areas. And one of those areas that's really important is actually the rescue of the kidnapped children. So I actually applaud the idea of using frozen assets for that. Would make a difference for the war. Oh yeah, it will make a difference for the war. Of course, you mean the 10 billion deal? Yeah, it will. How should I put it in simple terms? Like if the guys on the battlefield will receive just a few shells more, or if there's more anti-air to defend cities, it will always make a difference in the war. Sending weapons rather than not sending weapons will always have some sort of impact. And we've seen that the attacks on the cities have been becoming more and more frequent and more intense. So any sort of anti-air will help to lessen the damage, lessen the amount of victims. Yeah. It's not the ideal number. It's not the number that I would like it to be, but it is still better than nothing. The 10 billion thing. Does that make sense? So Donald Trump, sources say that new funding may be aimed at sending a signal to Russia, which in recent days has been shelling Ukraine with drones and missiles. Earlier this week, Trump hinted that he plans to send more defensive weapons to Ukraine, although just a few days prior, his administration had supported some arms deliveries. And of course, if you're going to have this 10 billion sales deal to NATO, then that means that as a side bonus, the United States will have to move its production lines into shape as well, which is, I think, a bonus as well when discussing these things. That will definitely end up being beneficial as well. A White House official called this move part of a broader global review of weapons deliveries because we've had a weapons freeze. Weapons that have been in Poland waiting to be delivered to Ukraine have been stopped the delivery because low stockpiles. Hegseth had done this behind everybody's back. He has not actually informed anybody that he has done this. At the same time, US officials reported that Trump had 3.85 billion at his disposal, left over from the previous administration, which could be used to send American military equipment to Ukraine. Former officials also revealed that the US president has the option to confiscate about 5 billion from Russian frozen assets, which we have discussed just now. And we have even discussed what would be done with these assets. CBS notes, however, that neither Trump nor former US President Joe Biden has exercised this authority. A few days ago, Politico also reported that Trump is considering a new military aid package. Well, it's not going to be an aid package, it's going to be a sales deal, which is, while better than nothing, it could be better, could be bigger. Could be bigger. Lucy, well, white heist, is that what we're calling whitewashing now? Okay, I have no clue what you're talking about. I have no clue what you're talking about. But hello, fake Carl Parker. Welcome to the stream. Alright, let's continue. Okay, but the American left will condemn the strapping of Ukrainian debt and condemn grants instead, right? Demand grants instead, right? It's not exactly locking Ukraine in debt because NATO will be buying the weapons. NATO will be the party buying the weapons and it will be giving it to Ukraine. So it's not actually going to be putting Ukraine in debt in that regard, at least. As I understand how it's supposed to work. But then we're going to, because we've had a nice time, and well, it's been cool, it's been nice, but now we're getting to the nonsensical news. Now we really White House, okay, whatever. Listen, it's late. I'm tired. I'm Polish, and it's been a long day, and I'm going to be traveling in the morning. Like you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be moaning about me mispronouncing stuff. Say stew z powyłamywanymi nogami, okay? Stew z powyłamywanymi nogami. Say it, and I'll let you off the hook for criticizing me for mispronouncing things. Okay? Brzęczyszczykiewicz. There you go. People complain so much about mundane things. Okay, so we had good and semi-good news. If the US actually decides to release the frozen assets and give them to Ukraine, and Ukraine will use it to support, will use it to find steps needed to rescue kidnapped children. Now that would be fantastic news. That would be some of the best news I've heard in a while, considering just how little of just what a small amount of the kidnapped children has been rescued so far. Which again is not something people are talking about. You haven't said it, you wrote it. Anybody can write it. You have to send me a voice message. Also, you're Polish, so you don't count. Also, you haven't complained about me mispronouncing things. Okay, let's just get into it. The BS news. Breaking news. Trump threatens Russia with severe tariffs if no Ukraine deal reached in 50 days. So basically what is happening is Trump has given Russia, for no reason at all, additional 50 days to do whatever, and then maybe because with Trump, everything's a maybe. He will do severe tariffs, maybe. Because you know what? We might end up in a situation in which on day 49, Trump will decide, you know what? Zelensky has been a poo-poo head to me. I don't like Zelensky. He's a dictator. Ukraine has been very ungrateful to me. And I have decided not to do the sanctions, even though 50 days have passed, because Ukraine has no cards or whatever nonsense he could. You know what I mean? Anything could happen within 50 days. Why give him another 50 days? It makes absolutely no sense to me. Okay? It makes absolutely no sense to me. The US will impose severe tariffs on Russia unless it agrees to do a deal on ending the war in Ukraine within 50 days. And I cannot take this anymore. It's like, I will end the war before taking office. I will end the war within 24 hours upon taking office. I will end the war within half a year. No, wait, I will end the war within 100 days. Okay, I'm giving Russia 2 weeks, 2 weeks to have a ceasefire. Otherwise, there will be some consequences. Maybe I am looking at it very intensely. Oh, 2 weeks have passed. Okay, you've got another 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks, and now 50 days. Do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of this helpless parent that has a misbehaving child and says, little Billy, you better stop misbehaving. I'm giving you a count of 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 20, 90. You get what I mean, right? There's no believability to Trump's words. There's no real behind I'm giving you a firm deadline, and once you cross it, there will be consequences, because Putin has crossed several of these deadlines and nothing has happened so far. So I actually have no trust that something will happen this time. I'm very skeptical. I think this is very bad, and it's nonsense. It's nonsense. Why would you give him another 50 days? Why? Why didn't he just give him something like 25 days? Why did he make it 50? There's speculation that apparently Putin has told Trump that he wants to conclude his operations within the Donbass region within 60 days. And since then, now we are in the ballpark of there being 50 days left till that goal. And the idea is that Trump will wait for Putin to achieve everything that he wants and then sort of come back to talk about peace. It's just, if that's true, then I don't even know what to say, to be quite honest with you. This sounds awful. But then again, I cannot think of any logical reason why anybody would give Russia additional 50 days to do whatever. I just cannot think of a good excuse for that. I just cannot. We're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs that are about 100%, we call them secondary tariffs. I mean, what are secondary tariffs? That makes no sense. I think he means sanctions, secondary sanctions. But I think for some reason he decided to use the word tariffs, which is already strange because 100% is 100%. But I'm pretty sure that in an earlier announcement, the US said that there would be a 500% increase in. There will be a 500% secondary tariffs on anybody buying Russian oil and gas. That was the threat, and now it's down to 100%. It's changes all the time. It's finicky. Nothing's really trustworthy, and I am very, very skeptical about all of it. Because what is left? I don't have the blind faith to believe that Trump is finally gonna step up, especially when he's giving Russia such a long additional time. I just don't have it in me. The announcement comes amid growing frustration from Trump over Russia's delays. Come on, Trump can act as frustrated as he wants, but there's this famous saying. I think it's a pretty international saying. The saying goes, "Action speaks louder than words," and so far we are only seeing words and not much else. And it frustrates me. It frustrates me a lot that we are not really seeing anything much else than action, okay? Than words, empty words about being frustrated, about secondary tariffs, whatever the hell that means. And it's frustrating, but let's continue with this. Wait till I tell you what okay, there you go. Oh, okay, this is happening now. So a journalist basically asked Donald Trump in the White House, "Hey, why are you giving Putin additional 50 days? It does not make any sense for you to do that." And I have here a response. This was Trump's response. Take a look. This is his response. Hold on, let's unmute him. Let's unmute our boy.
Any questions, please? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. What was the tipping point for you in making this decision? Was it a conversation with President Putin? Was it a piece of intelligence? And why are you giving 50 more days?
I think it's a very short period of time. I think, don't forget, I've just really been involved in this for not very long. And it was an initial focus. This is a Biden war. This is a Democrat war, not a Republican or Trump war. This is a war that would have never happened. It shouldn't have happened. A lot of people being killed. Any questions, please? Yes.
What the fuck does it even mean? A Democrat war, not a Republican war. This makes absolutely no sense. Okay, this is a war between Ukraine and Russia. Okay? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about that key animation. It's like my other thing. It makes absolutely no sense. And the answer that Trump gave to the question of why are you giving Russia additional 50 days does not fill me with confidence whatsoever. It actually fills me with dread because he did not have a ready answer. He did not have any sort of rationale to give even as to why he decided to give 50 days in particular. That is very, very scary to me because that either means that he just doesn't know why he gave 50 days and just chose the number randomly and is just giving Russia time for nothing, or he knows exactly why he chose 50 days and is choosing very deliberately not to say why, by shifting the blame for the entire thing on Biden and the Democrats, of course. So, brilliant what is happening. And this also makes me more worried about the arms deal itself, like about the details of the arms deal. What weapons, what quantities, time frame of delivering them to NATO, and then from NATO to Ukraine, the logistics of it. I just hope that Ukraine will not get screwed over on this. at least I have sort of hope for the $5 billion frozen assets thing. Should it go past Congress? Should it actually, because the kidnapped children really need help. I feel really good about the fact that the way this money will be used, if it will be used, is to help secure the rescue of these children. Like, I know I'm repeating myself, but I've just learned about it myself together with all of you, and that actually I treat as very, very good news if it happens. Wonderful news, even, especially since the whole fiasco of Dodge allegedly deleting a whole database of kidnapped children, hampering the rescue efforts in a big way, or for that matter, gutting US aid, which also funded organizations that investigate kidnapping of children and rescue them. So, and at last, some good news when it comes to the topic of kidnapped children. There we have it. Talking to journalists. It's not my war. We've heard it from the horse's mouth. And we want to see it end. I'm disappointed in President Vladimir Putin because I thought we would have a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there. He added. Trump's biggest problem is that he thinks that Putin is his personal friend, and he thinks that politics is about making personal friends, and that those personal relationships will inevitably just translate into international relations, and that Trump through these will just get whatever he wants. And that is absolutely not how that works. That is just a recipe to be played like a fiddle by the KGB guy, Vladimir Putin. It's the most naive thing that you can think of. Like, it's the most naive type of thinking about international relations that you can imagine. This sort of relationships-based negotiation tactic, especially since Trump has already weakened his negotiating position tremendously through his flip-flopping on tariffs, through his constant threatening of NATO states, partners, through his flip-flopping on Russia constantly, giving it more and more time for no reason. Trump's not really a good deal maker, if you haven't noticed. It might come as a shock to you, but Trump is not really good at brokering deals. Recent weeks saw Russia ramp up aerial strikes across Ukrainian cities after repeatedly rejecting calls by Kyiv and its Western partners for a ceasefire. I speak to Putin a lot about getting this done, and then missiles are launched into Kyiv or some other city, and it's strange. I go home and tell the First Lady. This is the anecdote. I spoke with Vladimir today. We had a wonderful conversation. She says, "Oh, really?" Another city was just hit, the US president added. Like, come on. Like, this reads like a comedy sketch. Especially since for Donald Trump, every conversation is a wonderful conversation. But who cares about wonderful conversations? Really? The guy who's had over 6 bankruptcies is a bad deal maker. Yeah, I mean, people have been saying that he will make a great deal on Ukraine. Also, people voted for him, okay? People voted for him. So apparently there are quite a lot of US citizens that believe that Trump is indeed a good deal maker and a good president. The secondary tariffs presented by Trump appear to fall short of bipartisan US Senate bill, which seeks to impose a 500% tariff on imports from countries that continue purchasing Russian oil and raw materials. There you go. But those are sanctions, okay? Those are secondary sanctions more than tariffs. Commenting on Trump's announcement, top EU diplomat Kaja Kallas said that the proposed timeline for a peace loan deal is too lengthy. Yes, just 50 days. I still cannot get over this. On the one hand, it is very positive that President Trump is taking a strong stance on Russia. Yeah, translation. We are happy that Trump is actually doing anything as opposed to doing nothing, which has been the case up till now. On the other hand, 50 days is a very long time. If we see that they're killing innocent civilians also every day, she said in Brussels on July 14, it is clear that we all need to put more pressure on Russia so that they would also want peace. Well, even if there's peace achieved, and that is a bigger problem, which I feel like I have to start talking about this more. Like, this is my topic of interest. This is my topic of work. So I feel like I should remind everybody every single time on stream that just even if there's peace negotiations, even if there's peace, there's no telling that Russia, as part of those peace negotiations, will agree to return any children. There should be specifically a lot of pressure on Russia to, as part of peace, return the kidnapped children to Ukraine. And my big fear is that peace, quote unquote, will be achieved and the children will, quote, just be forgotten by the international community. Russia will just keep them, say, okay, they're Russian citizens now, and that'll be it. And everybody will just forget all about it. Nobody will care anymore. That is my biggest fear. Well, we'll see. We'll see what will happen. At the end of the day, I'm just a person. I'm just trying to predict what is going to happen. I have a very skeptical Slavic Polish brain, and you might think that I'm very negative, but a lot of negative things have happened. Oh, there you go. We're gonna make top of the line weapons and they'll be sent to NATO. We're gonna make top of the line weapons. See, this means that the US manufacturing will be put into gear in order to fulfill those weapon sales. NATO may choose to have a certain number of them sent to other countries, where the country will release something and it will mostly be in the form of a replacement, Trump explained. The scheme will be fully paid and coordinated by the alliance, he stressed. Okay, that's another problem that I have not thought about. It's a 10 billion weapon sale to NATO, which NATO will in turn send to Ukraine. But the question is, will NATO choose to send all of the weapons to Ukraine from those deals? True. That is true, Cal Parker. Ruth explained that the new plan means that Ukraine will get its hands on massive numbers of military equipment, both for air defense but also missile ammunition, etc. He added that the deal would not endanger the US's own military readiness. If I was Vladimir Putin today, I would reconsider whether I should take negotiations about Ukraine more seriously than I was doing at the moment, the NATO chief said. We'll see. We'll see how this will play out in practice, because tough words have been said before, and words do not win wars. Wars do not force Russia to the negotiating table. So I would like to wait and see, and I would like to see what happens. Trump probably thinks the movie Sophie's Choice is about a woman who got to give up one of her kids. Oh, my goodness. Germany and Norway recently voiced readiness to purchase at least 3 new Patriot batteries from US manufacturers and deliver them to Ukraine. strengthening the country's air defense capabilities. Trump has long been reluctant to greenlight additional arms for Kyiv, arguing that European countries should take on greater responsibility for aiding Ukraine as well as for their own security. Recent reporting suggests that for the first time since taking office, Trump may approve a new military aid package to Ukraine under the presidential Drone Down Authority. Well, it does not end up being that. It ends up being a 10 billion military sales deal to NATO, which will then in turn, those weapons will see in what proportions will be sent to Ukraine. So that's the current news. Okay, that's basically where we're at. And there you go. There we go. I am not super hyped, but